so this is a video by Katie Bell, Physiotherapy and Wellness, and it's for clients that enjoy hiking or long distance walking. My name is Dilly, I'm the Senior Sports Massage Therapist here, and I'm going to be taking you through some warm up and some cool down stretches, especially for you hikers, to target any areas where there might be any common injuries and muscles that you use the most. So this video is split into two parts. The first part is looking at dynamic stretches, so what you would do before a hike, and then the second part is more static stretches, ones that you hold for a bit longer, and these are for the cool down, what you do afterwards, focusing on lengthening the muscle and any sort of post-walk tightness. Okay, so the first part we're looking at more dynamic stretches. So for this first bit, you're going to need a tennis ball. So I just grab one. We're first of all going to be looking at loosening off our feet. So our feet are really important for walkers. They take a lot of impact on a long walk, and if they are tight, then they might lead to problems throughout the rest of your body, because your feet are connected right the way from the bottom of your foot all the way to the top of your forehead. So it's really important that we keep our feet nice and loose. So what we're going to do first is you just place your foot underneath the ball, and what we're doing is we're just rolling through, rolling under, and if you have any areas of tightness, these will be really obvious, and what I want you to do then is just press down into those really tight areas, making sure that they're nice and loose. And then what I want you to do is come into a bit of a big toe stretch. So placing your big toe on the ball. You can also do this on a book if you're sending the tennis ball to the other side of the room. And what we're just focusing on here is getting a nice stretch across that toe and making sure that we're getting a nice stretch across the foot as well, stretching out that connective tissue. And then we repeat on the other side. So just rolling the ball forwards and backwards, loosening off any really, really tight areas. Lovely. So next, we're going to just circle our ankles. So ankles are really common places to get an injury if you're a hiker or a walker. As I'm sure you probably well know, at some point you will have fallen down a rabbit hole or tripped over some uneven terrain and just felt like you've had a bit of a stiff ankle. So it's really important to just circle those feet in and out, get those warmed up. Lovely. So our next one is we're going to be stretching out our calves. So Achilles tendonitis and plantar fasciitis is really common, again in walkers, and tight calves can be a big risk factor for these. So making sure that they're nice and loose before we head out. So we are straightening the back leg, bending the front one and leaning against the wall with our hands. We're just going to bend and straighten that front knee, keeping it moving the whole time. And now we're going to swap. We're going to keep the front leg still, and we're going to bend and straighten that back leg. Lovely. And then we repeat on the other side. So bending, straightening the front leg, and then bending and straightening the back leg. Lovely. So next we're going to warm up our hamstrings, so the muscles at the back of our legs. You're going to hold on to a wall, you're going to put one leg behind the other, and we're just going to reach forward, hinge forward from the hips, stretching out that hamstring. You should feel a nice stretch up and down the back of your leg. Good, making sure that we're moving. Obviously you can hold it if you've got a particular tight bit, if you feel like you need to, but we're just preparing ourselves for exercise, so getting the blood flowing, making sure that we're ready for that walk. Lovely. So next, we're just going to do a bit of a warm up for here. We're coming into a lunge, we're tucking our pelvis under, and we're bending up and down into a bit of a lunge. So we push through our back toe and our front heel, keeping that pelvis tucked under, and you should feel a nice stretch down the front of your thigh and into the front of your hip. And obviously we swap, do that on the other leg, keeping that pelvis tucked under. Lovely. So next we're just going to warm up our glute muscles. So one of the best ways to do this is we just swing backwards and forwards like a bit of a pendulum. Doesn't need to be very fast, but we're just making sure that we're focusing on this big powerhouse muscle at the back. Good. And doing that on both legs. Bringing that forward. Good. So next we're just going to do a few pelvic tilts. So I want you to come sort of hip width apart. Imagine you've got a bucket of water here, and you're just going to tip the bucket of water forward and then tip it backwards. So from the side, that looks like this. And then we reverse it. And what we're doing there is we're just loosening off your lower back, get your pelvis nice and warm, get you connected to your body. Lovely. So we also need to making sure that we're warming up our upper body. So some nice shoulder rolls in there. Often if we're wearing a backpack or we're walking up quite a steep gradient, we tend to lean forward and then these muscles shorten. So we need to make sure that we're loosening off and warming up here first before we go. So some big arm circles and bringing it forward. Some quick neck stretches side to side. Good, and the last one I'm going to do is a bit of a spinal twist. So you can either stay standing, we imagine there's some headlamps pointing forward, our hips stay exactly where they are, cross our arms and we twist from side to side, stretch out our upper back. If that's too difficult, it can come down into kneeling and do the same thing, and that keeps your hips in the same position. So that concludes our dynamic warm-up. I'm now going to go into some static stretches. So these are what we do post-hike. So we're aiming to keep the muscles nice and lengthened, reduce any stiffness or tightness that you may have felt during the walk, and reduce any sort of delayed muscle soreness that might come and then might bring on any injuries. So what we're going to go into first is that foot stretch. So this one we just start in sitting, and we're just going to pull our big toe up, and we're just stretching all of that connective tissue down there into your foot and your plantar fascia. Good. And we hold all of these stretches for 40 seconds each, and that means that we're lengthening the muscle tendon and we're lengthening the actual muscle tissue as well. So there's a bit more of a long-term effect than if we were to hold it for less time. So once we've done that, we can come into a bit of an adductor stretch here. So we just come in to this butterfly position, and we're just going to press down here, and you should feel a nice stretch here. If that's a bit too much for you, you can come up into standing and do the same stretch by coming over to one side and holding that for 40 seconds instead, and holding that for 40 seconds. Lovely. So our next one, we're coming into that calf stretch again. So exactly what we did before. Front knee bent, back one straight, and we're going to hold this for 40 seconds now. And then once that's been 40 seconds, we're going to bend our back knee and hold that for 40 seconds. That, by bending your knee, that just means that we're stretching out the deeper calf muscle underneath the big one that gives the muscle its shape. If this isn't enough of a stretch, you can also drop your heels off a step, and that's going to stretch out that calf muscle as well. So next we're going to stretch out our hamstrings. So we place one foot in front of the other, hold onto the wall if you need to, and bend one leg, keep one leg straight, hinge forward from the hips. If you want an extra neural stretch, lift the toe up. Doesn't matter how far down you get your hands, as long as you're feeling that nice stretch in the back of your leg, that's what we're looking for. And swap legs, and do it on the other one. Lovely. So our quad stretch now, our big thigh muscles. We're going to grab our ankle, bring our knees together, push our pelvis under, and you should feel a nice stretch here in the front of your thigh and your hip flexor. If you can't quite grab your ankle, either use a dressing gown cord or a towel, or grab the edge of your trouser and pull your ankle in that way instead. Obviously swapping legs and doing it on the other side. So we're going to stretch out our glutes now. So crossing one leg over the other and bending down through in sort of a half Buddha position if it was. And swapping legs. So if that's a bit too much for you, you can do it lying on your back as well in a figure of 4 position. Lovely. So we're going to come into that hip flexor stretch now. So we come into a lunge with our back toes on the floor, tucking our pelvis under and coming forward. And if you need to, lean back slightly, and that's just going to stretch out that hip flexor there that's probably been working really hard. And we're holding these for 40 seconds at a time. And we swap legs, and we come under. So we need to stretch out our lower back as well. So we do this by coming into a bit of a lumbar roll. So we lie on our backs, knees bent up, knees together, and we just twist to one side. Adding in a few rolls first, and then holding either side, turning the head in the opposite direction, and holding this for 40 seconds. And then our final one, we're going to come into what we call a shell stretch, or a child's pose in yoga. So our hands come forward, and we just stretch out the upper back. Head relaxes down, palms flat on the floor, head resting on the floor as well. And if you want an extra hip stretch, we bring our legs out a bit further, and that just stretches out your adductor muscles as well on the insides of your thighs. Lovely, so that concludes our warm up and our warm down for all of you hikers. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope it's been useful, and yeah, happy hiking!